Welcome back. It's the Flow Friday Sports Show on Flow FM. It's time to turn our attention to the River Murray Netball Association. Pat Brown, our correspondent for this association, is on the line with me to tell us everything we need to know. How are you, Pat?
I'm good, thank you, Dan. And you?
Going very well, thank you. No single-digit margins in the association over the weekend, but some nice high-scoring games and some interesting results nevertheless. So let's get stuck in. It was the Imperials heading to Tailem Bend and getting a win as expected, 45-31, maybe slightly closer in a margin than what we might have thought.
Yes, the first time these two teams met, it was a difference of 21 goals. This time round, it was only 14. Tailem at home, they love to host teams at home. It seems to give them a spark, and they were able to reduce that scoreline, which showed a great improvement for the Eagles against the association's number one team. Tailem have battled really hard against most teams this season, and it really doesn't matter who they're facing. They'll go out with the same determination to be the best that they can, and going down by only 14 goals to Imperials shows that the Eagles are starting to find their feet, albeit towards the end of the season. But nonetheless, it's still a good win for the Blues.
Certainly is a good win for the Blues. They stay on top of the ladder, 11-1, going along very nicely this year. The Ramblers had a good win, 66-55 over Jervois, and we've talked about their schedule. We know that they need to bank these wins before things get really tough for them over the next few weeks.
The game started extremely well with brilliant accuracy by both teams' goalies. Ramblers were determined, as we know, because they're fighting for fourth spot. But simple errors crept into their game, and Jervois were able to capitalise on that, giving them a 5-goal lead at quarter time. But Ramblers made changes to their team from centre all the way down through to goalkeeper, and this had the effect that standing coach Mark Dougal wanted, to get the game back for them to be actually up by 1 goal at half-time. Despite the moves by Jervois coach Tessa Thurston, the blood failed to peg back the Roosters because they went on to win the game by 11 goals. But interestingly, I found when I was reading the match reports that best players for both teams were their two goalies. And with a score of 121 goals scored in the game, you can understand why.
All right, so a nice win there for the Ramblers as well, and that race between them and Mannum for the last final spot is going to get very, very heated, but they're not the only ones in that race. Maipalonga are firmly in that race as well, but they really needed to beat the Mallee Storm last weekend to sort of get a leg up on the competition, and they were unable to do so. The Storm getting it done at home, 51-37 over the reigning premiers.
Yeah, look, the first time these two teams met, it was a difference of 19 goals. This time round, it was only 14. You could say that Maipa are on the improve because they brought the score down by 5, but Storm are very confident now that they've secured second spot, albeit for the moment. Both sides started well with goal to goal until pressure from the Storm defenders started to create errors for the Maipo attacking line. Fast ball movement and good interceptions were a feature for the Storm in this quarter, and they led by 5 goals at quarter time. The second quarter saw the first of many changes. Storm's changes paid off dividends, and they went on by half-time to be 16 goals up. That's very hard to come back by. But Maipo came back at them a bit in the third quarter and actually won that quarter by a goal. But the Storm, they come back at the Tigers in the fourth quarter, and they won the game by 14 goals. But the Storm seem to have moments of brain fade, shall we say, and they'll be playing really, really well, and then one or two things go wrong and they seem to drop their concentration and their motivation, and then it takes them a little while to get back up. This will be okay against some of the lower teams, but when they come back against the Suns next time around and Imperials, they've got to play a full 60 minutes of netball if they want to take out the grand final this year. They can't have these moments of switching off.
And Mannum 74 over the Coorong Cats 41. Mannum gaining some valuable percentage there. They really needed that big win and they got it. So they are just trailing the Ramblers by 0.05% on the ladder, but the Ramblers do have a game in hand.
Yeah, that's right. And Mannum knew that. That's why they went out after the Cats on that last week, because they needed that. If they want to have any hope of playing in the finals, they need to get as much percentage as they can. And we know the Cats have all been impacted by player injuries, etc. But they faced Mannum last week, as to the best that they can against a team that has quite a bit of height advantage. The Cats would have been encouraged that they converted the first centre pass of the game, but it didn't take long for Manham's defenders to just get back in and have an impact on interceptions and turnovers. And Manham's defenders have a real grim determination and focus. The Cats never gave up, but when an opposition is as focused as what Manham was, it is very hard to get back into the game. And once a team's up by 21 goals at half-time, it's very hard to peg them back, and it was a good win for the Roos.
Certainly was a good win for the Roos. Like we said, they needed a big win and they got it. Southern Suns were on the bye. Let's look ahead to the round 14 action. I reckon Manham and the Southern Suns might just be close to the game of the round here. Manham hosting the Southern Suns, who are going to be fresh off that bye.
As good as what Imps and Ramblers promised to be, match of the round, I'm going for this game as match of the round. I mean, I know the first time they met, there was a huge scoreline. It was 34 goals difference the first time, but Manham are playing at home. Manham are fighting for fourth spot, and this will give them a good momentum that they'll need for the victory. But the Suns have just lost second position, and above all else, it was a loss to the Storm, followed by a bye that did the deed. So they'll be out to show all the teams that they are still capable of playing in the final game of the season. With all that in mind, it's going to be a great game, especially if the goalies and defenders come out to play, because the goalies and defenders in both of these teams can impact greatly on a game. The Suns will win, but not by the 34 first-time round.
All right, the tip is in there, and like you said, the Imperials hosting the Ramblers will be another thriller this weekend. The Ramblers have that tough schedule coming up. They need to get a win over one of the top-ranked teams. Good opportunity for them here.
Yeah, this will be a highly contested game of netball, because these two clubs of history, and not just both because they're based in Murray Bridge, both teams can be very tough bodily. And one of the best matches of the day is going to be Imperial centre Olivia Bolt on Ramblers Nikki DiMichele. These two players have faced off against each other so many times that no game ever disappoints a spectator. But it's the goals that are going to determine who's going to win this game, because comparing the goal shooters for both teams against each other, they're pretty much on a par. So it's going to come down to applied pressure by the defenders. That will probably be to determine the scoreline in this game. Ramblers will want to be as close to Imps as they possibly can. Imps will just play their game like they've just every other game. They want to keep their number one spot. Because of that, I think the defenders for Imperials have a bit more experience than Ramblers, so it will be an Imps win. It's a game that Ramblers will want to keep in touch with as much as possible to keep that percentage that they may need for fourth spot.
All right, two more games this weekend. Mallee Storm travelling to Jervois, and that should be a win for the Storm.
Yeah, well, Jervois are hosting the Storm, and although it's very hard to see the Bloods taking the Storm out of the winner's circle, I mean, they've had 6 consecutive wins. Jervois have improved so much this season whilst blending the older with the young, but it won't be any match against Storm on this occasion. With the amount of height that the Storm have in all playing thirds, it is hard to see Jervois impacting the Storm's style of play. If the Mallee District team does have any weaknesses, the Jervois team are going to have to learn it really fast if they want to be able to capitalise on a different Storm this time around. Jervois first time around won by 2 goals, but this will be a win to the Storm. The biggest question is by how much. I mean, the Storm are playing with a lot more confidence. They've got experienced players now. They've got height where they need height. It's hard to see them going down to Jervois this time around.
Maipalonga hosting Tailem Bend. Last game of the round. Desperately need the win here, the Tigers. But Tailem Bend, they're in a good little patch of form, and it was just a 3-goal margin in favour of Maipo last time they played. So any thought of maybe an upset on the cards here?
Look, it's going to be a good game of netball. I mean, these two teams always seem to have a good game of netball, although from a spectator's point of view, it's not a free-flowing game of netball. It seems to be a very much of a stop-start style of game. So last time, Maipo won. But tomorrow, basically, it could be anybody's. And if Tailem come out with all of their skills and determination that they must have showed against Imps last week, then the areas to watch in this game are going to be the 2 centres with my post, Stacey Smith proving to be a bit of a stumbling block for most teams. Charlie Lewis's height for MyPo in goals is a definite advantage because I don't believe Taylor have any defender that if Charlie is playing in the right spot and is fed well, they'll be able to contend with. But on the other hand, if Taylor's Mel Edwards can get her hands on as many balls as possible, they should see their skyline rise too. So it's a hard game to see MyPo lose at home. But as they say, anything is possible for Taylor.
All right, Pat, thank you very much. Very good round ahead in the River Murray Netball Association this weekend. Coorong Cats, of course, on the bye, being not mentioned in those previews. Enjoy the action, Pat. Good luck to everyone playing, and we'll catch up with you again next Friday.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Speak to you then.